Okay. Hi, everyone. Hello. Good evening. How's everybody doing? Great. Great, great, great. That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here and spending time with us as part of the Seen Unseen exhibition. There will be a tour following this, and while it was like titled a curator tour, I'm grateful that the artists are also here, so they will join us along with the tour, and you'll be able to speak to them about the works that you see in the atelier. Um, this exhibition began with a conversation, one that I had many times with myself and again with LuCille. And the question of how do we navigate being visible in a world that often wants to define us before we've had a chance to define ourselves. For Black artists especially, being seen can be a complicated thing. It can be powerful and affirming, but it can also come with projection and pressure, even risk. So Seen Unseen is an attempt to hold space for that complexity, to invite both artists and audiences to consider what's revealed, what's withheld, and what it means to be witnessed on your own terms. Before we begin the conversation today, I would like to take a moment to thank the incredible teams at Debaser and OBAC, the Ottawa Black Artists Collective, whose support and care throughout this entire process have been deeply grounding for me as an artist and curator myself. So thank you so much for making this opportunity possible and for creating spaces for experimental, community-rooted work like this. With that, we're going to get into it. We only have an hour, and I have some really good questions. And I know you will really enjoy hearing from all these artists. We will start by hearing from each of them about their pieces and how they relate to the themes that were talked about in the show. And after the panel, we'll leave a bit of time for the audience to ask any questions or for any further reflections. So, y'all ready? Yeah, okay, good. So let's begin with the work. I would love for each of you to briefly introduce yourself, your pieces, and speak to how it connects to the larger theme, whether directly or indirectly.
Shall I go first?
Take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is LuCille Giwa. I am a multidisciplinary artist. I am a community organizer as well. I paint, I tattoo, I am in ballroom. I do this, that, and the third. I direct, I'm in theater. A lot of things, right? And a lot of those spaces are very public. And a lot of those spaces are very open to public viewing and perception. And the piece I have upstairs is titled Giwa in the Room. Giwa means elephant in Hausa, and Giwa is my family name. My grandfather actually was nicknamed Giwa because he was a very large man, and he took up a lot of space, and I'm guessing his personality did too, and he just rolled with it. And now I've been blessed with that name. And it makes me really think about how I can often be the elephant in the room. My brother actually had the idea for Giwa in the Room as he asked me to make an album cover for him. And I said, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that idea. And he's been so sweet and so supportive throughout this. But I feel like I really did resonate with the idea of being queer, being Black, being an immigrant, being neurodivergent, all these very technical experiences that I have to navigate and being trans as well. All these very technical things that have to do with my identity that make it that I stand out in rooms in good ways and not so good ways. And so the perception of having a very big personality and a personality that's not willing to shrink to fit into anybody's check boxes, the piece essentially opens up a conversation about that and what that looks like, being this really big entity in these really, really small, limited frameworks. So yeah, and also my pronouns are they, he. I think I should probably even started with that. So I'm happy I got here. But yeah, so that's essentially like my experience with the piece, and it was specifically created because of this exhibit. So it was created under a month, and it's 8 feet big. So it's gigantic.
It's a big piece. Thank you.
My name is Yomi, visual artist, also here in Ottawa. Painter, most primarily. I'm also an engineer, so I work as an engineer full time. And my works here, I have two paintings up in the room. They're called Shelter from Gale and Whisper, and the other one is called Where Just, Which Ways Forward. So they're part of a recent body of work I've been working on called Where the Spirit Leads. So the theme of the works, I approach it in two parts. One is the conscious spirit and the unconscious spirit. So the two works up there are part of the conscious spirit branch of that exploration. And basically what I mean by the conscious spirit is, I think I'm 28 now. Most of my 20s have been sort of just improvising, not really knowing what to do. Life sort of just demands that you act. And being 28 now, I have a lot of friends that are becoming parents as well. And I'm asking them how, parenting is going, and they hate it. They love their kids, but they hate the process of not knowing what to do. There's no book on how to be a good parent, right? So, it seems like there's this shared experience of figuring it out by process. And it's something that has always been, something that perhaps would always be. After parenting, something else comes. Maybe they become teenagers. And I'm not a parent, but there's so many layers that this experience is shared in. So the Shelter from Gale and Whisper, if you look at the image, there's sort of this mother figure covering a childlike figure at the back. And there's sort of a fear or uncertainty in her eyes. And it's sort of just hinting at, realizing that my parents too were just figuring it out when they were parents. And there were times where we were angry at them for whatever they did. And having more perspective now, you sort of forgive them. You're sort of angry at yourself for being angry at them in the first place, because you don't know what you're doing now as well. So the other piece is called Which Ways Forward. You can sort of see the figure spiraling and twisting and turning, trying to find direction. And it's, again, alluding to the fact that life just demands that you take a step forward. But sometimes you don't know where to put your foot. You don't know where forward is. So I'm just trying to illustrate, what that may look like. So in my work, I'm always trying to, maybe now I'm leaning more towards storytelling, trying to connect dots, using a lot of metaphors and stuff like that. So, and thinking about how it connects to the theme, when life sort of demands that you move forward, if you don't feel ready, you could be apprehensive. You could not want to show up. You could want to put it on pause or not move at all. So, sitting with that discomfort, sitting with that, understanding that that's part of the process. I think that's what the work is trying to say in relation to the theme. When you go upstairs, you probably see it and connect the dots, but yeah, that's it.
Damn, y'all had really deep stories for yours. My name is Aluchi. Some people know me as Luniverse.JPG on Instagram. And I'm mainly a photographer in Ottawa. I do a lot of portraits and events, but specifically for this exhibition, it is some portrait photography. Basically, I have a collection of images upstairs, and the name of the collection is The Weight We Wear. And the theme of the photos is the idea of resilience. And it's funny because I had the idea to do the photos. I just procrastinated it for a long time. And then you reached out, and it was too perfect of a correlation between the idea of your exhibition and then the idea of the photos. Because what I wanted to do with them is the idea is we're all resilient. But the thing is, nobody can really see everything that you've been through. Only you truly know maybe all the traumas you've been through, maybe the obstacles you really have to push through, the challenges, even the good and the bad. And it's all really invisible, but it holds on to you and it stays on to you. And because no one can see it, no one can really feel the weight of everything you're carrying. They just kind of champion when you push, when you break some boundaries, they celebrate you, but then like you're like, "Ugh, but they can't see the thing I just did, the stuff that's like really weighing me down, but you have a smile on your face." And then the idea was to take the pictures to show the resilience by using red string, because I asked so many people what color resilience meant to them, and it was really fascinating because at different stages of being resilient, people said different colors. People said red, mainly for the courage, for the challenges themselves, just like the negative feelings of what you had to push through. Some people said yellow because they're thinking like a new dawn, or like green because like nature is really resilient. But for me, it was mainly red. So if you go see the images, it's a lot of string wrapped around the model in the middle to show that she's breaking through all the challenges that she had to do. And I just wanted to like personify or like objectify like resilience in those photos.
Thank you.
My name is Chyme. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chyme, aka Cherry Chyme, Chyme's Kiat. I'm Nigerian, born and raised. I'm a Renaissance artist. My main mediums of expression are music and fashion. So for my role in the exhibition is more music. There's no art for you to see, so come back for the show. But in terms of the theme, it's I'll preface by saying the name of my upcoming project is called Busy My Lover. It's an encompassment of various themes and various things. But one thing one of the foundational concepts is I'm Nigerian, like I said before. In my country, growing up, everybody acted like intimacy did not exist. So it's kind of like a hypocritic thing where people, like children are being born, like, so, but how are the children be, that kind of thing. Yeah, how do we get here kind of thing. And then high school becomes a very like turbulent time where if you're seen talking to somebody or in any kind of intimate or that kind of setting, it becomes a problem with your teachers or stuff like that. And what that only does is make you even more curious as to why is everybody being evasive about this thing. One. And then the other thing is just in the context of relationships, personal relationships, romantic relationships, etc. There's the interpersonal context, like how you see each other. Like you in a group, you might all be fine, you might all be friends, all be great people, but then outsiders have somebody they gravitate to, just in general. And then even with within the concept of romantic relationships, you could be, everybody could see you as this quiet or bubbly person, but then in like behind the scenes, it's the complete opposite. Just basically in the terms of what you might portray on the surface versus the emotions that fill those portrayals, and how you might circumvent some of the emotions and show different things. So like I said, come back for the show and you get a better idea. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dominique. I'm a spoken word artist, poet, and writer. I'm also not a visual artist. I will be performing tonight at 7:15. In terms of the theme of the exhibition, Seen Unseen, as a writer, specifically as a poet, I find that my work tends to be very vulnerable because it's, unlike photography, unlike painting, there's not much room for ambiguity because the words that you're hearing and even my voice and the way I'm portraying those emotions can feel very raw, very real. So I think like just that in itself already plays into the idea of what I'm portraying, what I'm projecting, and also how you see me when I'm up there performing and what my words mean and what message I'm trying to convey. But the set that I've prepared for tonight, one of the poems is called Ghost of My Own. It's a poem that explores the feeling of being displaced, of feeling disconnected to yourself, and it's this loss of identity that we go through And I also explore a lot the theme of rebirth and what it means, and also the type of work that goes into reinventing yourself into somebody that you're happy with. But also within that process of reinvention, that you cannot shame yourself into becoming a better version of yourself. Like, it's cultivating that love, that understanding, that grace while you're trying to be the person that you want to become. So I'm really excited for tonight. I hope you all come back. But yeah, nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. So I'm glad that we sort of eased into that. So the space that we're in right now is also a part of the Seen Unseen exhibition. And the two artists that you are not seeing here today are Ali, whose paintings you will see in the atelier, and Michaela Van Beniem, MVB, who is the light artist that created the, created this feel. And you will get to see some of their projected visuals when you come back at 7:15, because you will obviously come back at 7:15 to watch Chyme and Dominique perform. And you'll also join us on this curator tour after this. So going to the next question, what was unseen in the making of this work? So process is often invisible, except for, in this day and age, like, I guess social media makes it such that we can maybe let people into the physical process of the making the work, like, the painting, or maybe the recording, or even the, maybe glimpses of us writing. But the internal process is often invisible, like how we come to making the work. So was there anything about the experience of making this work that felt particularly vulnerable, private, or difficult to name? Who's going to take the plunge?
Yeah, I think for me, because I paint, and painting is a very solitary thing. Like you said, you can post stuff on Instagram, but it's just me in the studio for months, nights, trying to see stuff to make it work, trying to connect the dots, trying to make sure the narrative aligns with the visual. So there's a lot of unseen parts technically, but also I think the narratives in the work are also unseen, in the sense that the work tries to encapsulate all of these concepts and experience, but the experience themselves are lost in memory, so you sort of have to remember, you sort of have to rely on your memory that may not be accurate all the time. So there's a good portion of it that is, left up in the air, that even the artist doesn't really see, because it's your experience, but you have to remember this in a certain type of way. And yeah, it's just a given that, it's lost in there somewhere. But that's also the beauty of it, is that it's not exactly the same. I'm not replaying a video. I'm just relying on my experience. And deciding how much of that comes, or is explained in the text. A lot of stuff is still hidden and still will remain hidden. That's just the personal aspect. But, I feel like sometimes it's often difficult to decide what you leave out and what you keep in. And, it's part of it, I think. So I would say the process is one on the technical side, but the experience is also a second thing that's hidden. It's still, no matter how much I try to explain it in the work, it's still something that only I would have seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of art, right? That you get to share some parts of it, but there are still some parts you get to keep for you.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love this question personally, because I'm going to get really frank with everyone. I was pissed off. I was navigating a lot of anger and a lot of injustice during the time that I started this piece. And it started from a conversation with my therapist, where they were talking about how a lot of the practices I do are very public. A lot of the talents, a lot of the skills, a lot of the times I navigate public life. Like a lot of my talents are public, and they're very much in real time, live and direct. So if I mess up, it's happening in real time in front of all of you. And so they reminded me that I needed a private practice. And so even in my attempt of, I had a lot of very big feelings when it came to this, and when it came to like navigating my practice with this piece. And that's why it's a gigantic canvas. It's not actually that big for like a lot of people, but it was pretty big for me, and I hadn't done anything that big in a while. So for me, I had a lot of feelings to put somewhere. I had a lot of tension to put somewhere. I had a lot of angst and anxiety and anger and frustration to put somewhere. And even in trying to document, because I did try to document, and I would like to say I got quite a couple of clips. But with even just trying to move and pull myself out of my funk to paint, and even the days that my brushstrokes were not consistent because I just wanted to get it done, because of the time frame I gave myself to finish this piece, which was a month, I knew that I was on a strict deadline. And I knew that that was the only way that I was going to finish that piece, if I'm really being honest. If not, I was going to leave it. It would have been done in 2028. But I needed something strict. I needed to really get rid of, not get rid of, but alchemize, right? I needed to alchemize all these strong feelings that I have of frustration, of happiness, all these really strong emotions that we're not really allowed to show. Because when you're really happy for yourself and you show it, you're cocky or you're overconfident. When you're frustrated, when you're angry, when you have all these like negative feelings, you're a crash out. And there's rarely anything in between, and we rarely have space in between. So even just trying to manage myself, manage how I curate myself for the public eye, I needed this piece. I absolutely needed this piece because it was helping me regulate my emotions. And that's something I would say was unseen. I feel like I kept posting like little time lapses here and there on my Instagram, and I even put like a countdown. People were kind of invested in am I gonna make it? I made it. But there was a lot of investment, parasocial investment in this piece, but I feel like people didn't really understand that I needed this. This is an outlet. This is the only way I can express myself without feeling like I would have intense scrutiny on me, while still it being a product of perception. And while it's still being a product that is going to be perceived in such a wild and big space. But even having the access to break down, cry, have all those breakdowns and then get my ass up and go paint, those are all part of the recipe that is the final product of this piece. So I would say that is the thing, that is the ingredient that is most important, that is unseen. The actual frustration, the actual emotion between because I feel like we go to museums, we go to all of these things, we go to art galleries, we go to exhibitions, we go to museums, we see the art and we're like, wow, what was this person thinking? Or wow, this is so beautiful, or this is so complex. But it's one thing to see that as a viewer. It's another thing to actually feel it in its making, which is why I'm trying my best to even immerse people into the experience. Beside the painting, there is the actual palettes that I used to create the piece and the actual brushes to kind of simulate that unseen more, while still knowing that the unseen really lives and dies with me. Right. Stephanie.
I would say for music, any artist, almost any artist would tell you, except a few anomalies, your music is only as good as your experiences. The quality of your music is only as good as the quality of your experiences, because you have to tell the people something, unless you just want to regurgitate what you hear on the radio all day. That said, there oftentimes, in fact all the time, most of the experiences that shape the music are never seen, especially in something like I said, like the next project. Um, it was an accumulation of listening to people. Well, for one, of course, my first-hand experiences with attempts at relationships and just talking to people, talking to ladies and whatnot. And on the flip side, is also in terms of the stories I was hearing from friends, strangers, and I'm often told that when I write, like if you listen, you might hear one thing, and then if you listen more, you might hear like 3 or 4 different things, because I do try to intentionally say multiple things with one sentence, especially in today's era where like attention span is short. You're trying to make a palatable song in 3 minutes or less. You have to intentionally find the words that can portray multiple meanings, and sometimes it flies. Again, that's another thing that's unseen, because you might put together, oh my God, this is the best verse, the best song, most meaningful song I ever wrote, and it just flies over everybody's head, and you're like, okay, that's unseen. But yeah, I'd say those are like the biggest thing. Like, and then in terms of sometimes you write a song as well, and you don't want to put it out anymore because you don't want to create the wrong impression or the wrong brand image, whatever that might be. So then there's that constant need for intentionality about what you're putting out, because every song you might do 15 great songs, but then you put out one song and then everybody expects you to put out songs like that sound like that one song. So just stuff like that, the things you navigate, the sometimes you doubt yourself, just different things like that. I would say those are like those were the major catalysts for the project, but the number one thing would still remain the quality of the experiences.
In terms of things being unseen, it was really hard bringing this project together. It almost didn't happen. Because
I'm like, oh.
No, because there's when you reached out, and then the fact that every studio that I thought I wanted to use was booked up in time. So I was going to different studios, like trying to figure out, okay, that one's booked up, I can't do it there. That one's booked up, I can't do it there. And then there was the idea of, how do I put string everywhere? I really had to think about it, and there was only one studio, and that was booked up for like most of May, and then there was this one Monday that I ended up working. And then the other thing was so many schedule conflicts. I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated in trying to make this shoot happen. And then the other thing was the string itself. I didn't know there were so many different kinds of string. Because like initially I was like, okay, I want it to be red string. That's cool. But if you think like there's the thin string, you won't be able to see that. Even if you like, put it everywhere, it's gonna look more like webs, and it's not. No. So the thin string was too. It was too thin. It's like, okay, I need to go thicker maybe, and then the thicker string was too fuzzy, and then I felt like it looks itchy. So that like thick string was gonna work, and then look for different string, and then some of them were, I was like, okay, but I might accidentally choke the model, so I can't use that string. I looked into so much string, and then I finally came upon t-shirt yarn, which I've never really heard before. But it's essentially, if you were to cut up a t-shirt into multiple strips, you know how like t-shirts are still kind of like stretchy a little? It was perfect, because like another part of the concept with resilience is you always bounce back. So I was like, that one. It was thick enough that it would be visible from like far away from where I was taking the picture, and I wouldn't choke the model, and the model would at least still be able to move in case like whatever happens. And it was just easier to work with, and there's I hate string. I hate string right now, but I'm happy I was able to find the right string for this concept.
And if you see the works, you would never believe that Oluchi hates strings. Because no, it's a lot of strings.
So, I do this thing when I write. It's never about me, except it is. Because I'm working on the project. Now that I'm thinking of it, I think there's not one poem in there where I say I. It's always you. But not in a pointing fingers at other people. It's more of a seeing my writing as a way of exposing myself, but as a mirror, a reflection. And so keeping it ambiguous enough that when you look through that mirror, you can see yourself, but it is based on your own interpretation. And also, I'm still sharing my story without feeling too exposed and too vulnerable, and without feeling like I'm giving so much away and I'm not keeping anything for myself. And so when working on specifically for this exhibition, I had to rewrite some work that I already had, but I also had to write a poem just entirely from scratch. And that part was harder than I expected because I do realize that I strive for perfection. I kept writing it and it wasn't sounding the way I wanted it to, because I have a very chaotic writing style. I might spend a week and I'm only able to write one sentence. And I wish that I was one of those writers that do brain dump and then I go to it afterwards. That never happened. The dump stays in my brain and then I just pick at it until it comes out exactly how I want it to be. So I write more than I edit because I spend so much time editing in my head before I finally get to writing. So that was a difficult part of it. And then back to what I was saying about the type of pronouns I use when I'm writing, there's one poem in this set that I had to use. Well, I didn't have to, but I challenged myself to use the word I, to stand in that vulnerability and see, and just allow myself to be in there without hiding behind a different pronoun, a different person, just really say it out loud that I am talking about myself, about my own experience, and just to see what happens. Like, will fire catch me on the stage and I don't know. So yeah, it was challenging in that sense and pushing me to explore vulnerability in a different way than I usually do. And also putting that mirror that I so often put onto other people, onto myself, and actually see if I won't run from it, basically. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. I love these conversations just almost as much as I love curating the work, but thank you. And Dominique, your response actually leads perfectly into my next question. So you answered a bit of it. So if you want to begin, that's entirely up to you, but anybody else can begin as well. So the next question is, we often talk about representation and the importance of representation, and it is, but it's not always enough, and it's not always safe. So how do you protect your practice or your sense of self in a world that so often wants access without taking the time to gain understanding? Okay, they're really good. I kind of ate with these questions.
She set me up. That's a setup.
Honestly, I would say the biggest thing is generally just do what you want to do and what you're comfortable doing. There was a time, again, there was a time where after I had lived like quite publicly for a while, I withdrew just into myself because you start to get questions like you might post something or you might say something in public with no underlying meaning, but then somebody has seen that thing or heard that thing and internalized it, and then 3 months down the line or a week down the line, you're in the most random spaces and you hear a question that's like, oh, well, that's not what I was trying to do. Like I said, for example, my mediums of expression are music and fashion. And there was a time where I used to be very, oh, this is what I'm wearing, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm wearing. And I came to find out that in certain spaces it was taken as I was constantly showing off. But that was not my intention. Since I've been as far back as I was 8 years old, I've liked to dress up. I remember like midterm breaks and breaks, I would sneak into my parents' room and mix and match my mom and dad's clothes for like colors I liked. Yeah, so like that's always been a thing. And then again, the family I came from, it's like everybody dresses up. As far back as I remember, my dad would dress me up to match him, and again, to me, he's the most stylish guy I know. So to me, it was just, this is like my lifestyle, or that becomes your lifestyle, or you might just think it's a lifestyle, but for someone else, it's offensive, or it's. But then again, on the flip side, then you get people who are like, "Oh, bro, I love that. You gave me an idea for this," or "Yo, I never knew you could wear sweatpants with a dress shirt and it will look cool," like stuff like that. So I'll say but the most important thing is do what comes most comfortable to yourself. Like the concept of aging well, you want to look back on it 15 years ago, 15 years back, and you're thinking, oh, okay, maybe I wouldn't wear that now, but that was cool. And then again, just live with no regrets. You're gonna make mistakes one way or the other, but internalize them as little as possible. You take the valuable lessons and you move on and you keep trying. But the most important thing is do what feels most true to yourself.
I've been making I was like, Nigerians have a saying, I've been making a list of like Nigerianisms, as I like to call them. But when you were speaking, I was talking about like, don't do past yourself. Like Nigerians say that often, right? It's like, don't do past yourself. Like, do what you can do. Do the one that you know that you can live with, sort of, right?
There was about 2 years ago, I think that's when I graduated, and I was like, I got time for photography. I got time for photos. I want to post it everywhere. I want everybody to know my name. I'm going to be online as how I want a K in my follower count. I'm going to post a lot. And I posted a lot. And I realized I put so much information out there that a lot of people knew me better than I wanted them to. Not in the worst way. It was just very interesting where sometimes I would go somewhere now, 2 years later, people will see me and then they'll say like a little fact that maybe was said in a random video or posted online in a caption. I'm like, how did you know that? I never told you that. And then I started also to do the same thing. I started to recede recently. I don't post as much. I don't care about the K because I realized that's the sacrifice. Because if you want a lot of followers, you got to give people a reason to follow you. And usually in the act of giving people a reason to follow you, you kind of have to give more pieces of yourself that you maybe don't want to at first. Or like people love drama. So you got to give them a reason, just like, oh, this is happening in my life. Okay, now stick around. And like earlier this year, I posted like a about me video because I realized, okay, this is all you're getting. You know that I have a 9 to 5, so be nice to me if I don't respond immediately. But that was like the one reason I posted it, because sometimes people are like, oh, why didn't you respond? I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not even in town. And then just like, I'm now choosing how transparent I'm gonna be and what information I put out there. And like it was said, you'll just like, you put what you're comfortable with. And I think that's what I'm trying to navigate now, because I want to hop back into reels, but I'm going to be really specific about like what I say in those reels, what I want to say, and what kind of version of me I want online. Because like I forget that I may be in this corner of the internet in Ottawa, but technically the whole world can see it. So I have to remember, okay, don't say anything too crazy that someone outside of Ottawa might not understand. Absolutely. So I'm kind of like re-navigating that now. Right. And then there's the other aspect of just like there's not as many Black photographers in Ottawa that are female. So also trying to stay to a certain like I know I've learned some people kind of look at me, they're like, oh wow, you're just here. I'm like, I don't know, pal. I don't feel that way. So it's also just like sometimes just being honest too online. Like, you may regard me as this way, but I'm also kind of human and also trying. And I still feel like this, even though you're looking at me like that right now. So it's just like learning how to navigate that as well.
Right. That like constant tension between like visibility and agency. Like, how do I give but also hold? Thank you.
You just gave me a lot to think about, which has made me kind of edit my answer. But I very much can validate that and validate what has been said so far. Like trying to distinguish between privacy and secrecy, trying to distinguish between what you can't do and what you can't do without. Because I'm an extroverted person, and being extroverted on the surface might seem like, oh yeah, like I'm very like friendly, I like to go out, I like to da. But it also means that like I get energy from being around other people. Like that charges me up. And unfortunately what that means is that if you are, oh bless you. Sorry. Yeah, so the unfortunate thing about that is that if you are around negativity, that is also what you absorb. Right? So which really highlights the conversation of like, what does self-protection and self-preservation look like, especially when you want to be authentic? Because I am a yapperella. Like I yap. Like, listen, if I'm watching a show, I will be on my stories talking about how that show is crazy. No, but you know. And I think it's very interesting because I have also seen situations whereby I'll bring something up that like I've said in my personal life and be like, oh yeah, we saw that on your story, and I'm like, oh Jesus Christ. And it can feel very invasive, but something that, and people interpreting things how they want to, fitting a narrative, projecting things that have happened in their personal life, in their families, in their, everybody projects. No one's special. We all project, right? And it's always very interesting to see how something that can be expressed or shared so harmlessly can be interpreted with so much harm. And it's always so interesting to see how like it shows what people have been through, and it shows what people have navigated. And it's always important to like keep up that empathy, keep a level of empathy, and be like, okay, this has everything to do with you, not so much to do with me. Because I have a sticky note beside my bed that says, Giwa, remember what you're up to. Remember what your intentions are. Remember what you intend, how you move in the space, and what you communicate. While also acknowledging the fact that people might not receive it in that way. And if you do cause harm, be accountable to that harm. What does that look like? But specifically in my artistic practice, one thing I know, especially like being in the closet, painting a lot of gay shit, having my mom all up in my house and being like, oh, Zizi, you don't paint men. And like, I'd really having to be like, well, hell yeah. I don't paint men. Like, I don't paint men. And like having to accept that like what I can't live without is my authentic self. I can't paint things. I can't say things. I can't do things. I can't write things just because it's going to make people happy or just because that's what's expected of me. As an artist, you have a responsibility to put yourself first and your feelings first. You have a responsibility, whether or not you share those things, whether or not, that's why private practice and personal practice and public practice are their own things. And that's something that you have a conversation within yourself to decipher what you're comfortable and what you're not comfortable sharing. But you have a right to express yourself. You have a right to trauma dump on the canvas. You have a right to do that. And if that's what your personality looks like, because I am a very open person, if something I say on Instagram is something I can say to anybody, like if we just meet on the street and we're kikiing, right? Like it's a very base level thing. If I'm being vulnerable, I'll be vulnerable, because at the end of the day, like that is what authenticity looks like to me. And I intentionally will not allow anyone stop me from being vulnerable if I feel the need to. Because the thing about it is, what got me to this point in time is frustration. Because at the end of the day, if you keep people pleasing, if you keep trying to bend the knee, if you keep trying to perform, then what are you doing for yourself? You're gonna die and be like, I did all this for everyone, but did anyone really get to see me? Did anyone really get to see my personality? Did anyone really get to see my spark? Did anyone really truly get to like me? Did anyone truly get to hate me? Did anyone truly get to feel something outside of this curated personality that I gave them? Right? So I think it's really that frustration of being like, yo, when I die, not to be morbid, what do I want to leave this space feeling? I don't want to regret anything. What you get is what you get.
So sorry, I ate a granola bar so fast before this. So yeah, the question of protection. For me, it started with managing my relationship with being visible, because I realized it might be my destiny. And it started very young, I remember. So I was born, and I also grew up in Haiti. And I always say that, as grateful as I am for the education system of my country, because it really pushes you past what you think your limits are, it also very much you either keep up or you get left behind. The people that get noticed are the people that seems like their talent is innate. There's not a lot of care and towards other kids that maybe needs more attention, that needs extra time to cultivate those talents. And I would say, maybe fortunately for me, I was part of the former category, so I was always being pushed in the spotlight. I was always being chosen to do this, do the speech, do that. And I've realized that, okay, it probably means that I'm going to be doing something that requires me to be in that light. And if I'm going to be in this light, I need to find a way to not either let it consume me, or to not be so afraid of it that I completely withdraw and I miss out on what I'm supposed to do. And so that looks like different ways. It could be social media is a really big one as artists, as Black artists that are always pushing and looking to be seen, to be noticed. It feels like you have to constantly put yourself out there. You have to do the work again and again, because you're not afforded the type of mediocrity that probably get other creators the type of attention that you're looking for. And it's as much as we can say that race has nothing, race or sexuality or gender or all of these categories that put us on the margin have nothing to do with it. The truth is they do. And we see it all the time, whether it's on TikTok, on Instagram. We see the creators that are getting the brand deals. We see the artists that are being noticed, that are going to the places that someone else might have been working for years to get to. And so that just looks like I think everyone said, protecting myself, and also just you see what I allow you to see, and you see it the way I present it to you. Now, it's not my responsibility how you interpret what I project on my social media. My responsibility is making sure I'm not harming anyone in any way, whether that's in my language, the type of content I will post, and the type of content I make myself. Those are my responsibilities, just making sure I'm being authentic to myself, and also constantly reflecting and questioning my intentions, questioning also my privilege in the spaces I'm occupying, like questioning the things that allow me to maybe be myself and that are not allowing someone else to do the same. So it's a lot of, I think that in itself, being an artist is another huge job aside of creating the art. Sometimes we spend more time trying to be visible than we do creating art. And yeah, it is hard sometimes, because there are days where I frankly do not want to post. I do not want to make content. I don't want to do anything. I just really want the art to speak for itself. But realistically, that doesn't always happen. So then I changed my approach, which is instead of seeing it as a chore, oh my God, I have to come on the internet and then beg people to see my stuff again. I see it more as creating community, like inviting people into a space where I'm creating, not just for me, because the moment I decided that I was going to take a mic and speak in front of an audience, that's the moment I decided the art wasn't just about myself anymore. Like I was still creating for me, but I'm also creating with an audience in mind, not in the sense that I'm completely shifting everything I do to make my art please them, but it's more of a being conscious of the responsibility I have as an artist that performs, as an artist that shows up and asks people to give me their time, because time is currency. You could be anywhere else tonight, but you choose to be here. So it's just managing all of those different expectations that we have of ourselves, that society have of us, especially when we are artists that exist on the margin. And at the end of the day, it's like you all said, doing what you do best and stay true to yourself and really just keep making the art that you're making. And one day, someone will see it. And even it's not 10,000%, that one person that needs to hear what you have to say, one day will thank you for it. So yeah.
Thank you. Oh, I wasn't going to forget. Yeah.
Could you please repeat the question?
Yes, of course. How do you protect your practice or sense of self in a world that often wants access without understanding?
Right. So I definitely agree with everything everyone said. I'll answer maybe in 3 parts. First part is simple. Social media is not a real place. I just tell myself that every time. The second part is I like to think that my work is not just for me. And I think of it in terms of what I listen to, not what I create, but what I consume. So, for instance, in 2016, a lot of good music came out. I think we can all agree if we like music here. But, for instance, Frank Ocean dropped an album in 2016, and I was obsessed with that album. But every time I listen to the album, even now, I'm not thinking about this is what happened in his life. I'm thinking about how I relate to the context. So while it's very vulnerable for artists to spill on their work, I think for the people it connects to, they're not necessarily thinking about the artist's life, really. It's more so how they connect to it, and it mirrors their own experience. So I think thinking of my work as not just being mine helps me, accept that the world demands always, that's okay. But once you realize that it's not just yours, especially when you put it out, that lifts off some weight, I think. When people never hit me up and say, oh, you said this or you did this in your work, tell me more about that in your life. It's more so I could relate to this, and then, so there's that part. But then there's also something I'm leaning more towards now, which is storytelling. Storytelling really allows you to be as vulnerable as you want, but it not be solely about you. So, like we all connect to stories in so many different ways. We watch films every day. These are all stories, right? But when you're watching the story or when you're listening to this story, you're not thinking about, oh, this is the director's life or this is the musician's life. It's more so this is a beautiful story that has taught me XYZ or influenced me in XYZ ways, or I can see myself in it in this or that way. So understanding this about my consumption has helped me be a little bit more open to revealing in my creation, if that makes sense. Yes, whereas, you could be talking about something very specific, but you inflate it in your mind as to, oh, this is really vulnerable. But the potential of vulnerability to really elevate your work. And so sometimes if you want to keep that to yourself, you feel the loss of what that piece could have been, right? But sometimes, it's a crossroad. I don't think there's a definite answer. You can choose not to reveal or you can choose to reveal, but whatever happens after that is not really in your control.
That makes sense. I think it's also like depending on what you're sharing and depending on when you're sharing, there's also like what you want to protect changes, right? Depending on the piece. Thank you all so much. And time is a social construct. I do not like it, but we do have a limited amount of time for this. So I'm going to ask the last question, and I'm going to give you like a strict 1 minute to 1 minute 30 seconds. Okay? And I'm sorry in advance because it's actually a pretty heavy question, so I apologize. 2 minutes max, because I do want to open up for a few audience questions. So the last question is, what is something about your relationship to being seen that you are still figuring out? And so this may be something about your identity, maybe something about your work, or how you're perceived by others, or even how you perceive yourself. But what is something that is kind of still in motion for you in that regard?
I can start. I think everything.
Okay.
I feel like this idea of being figuring it out, it's a myth almost, because when I was 20, I was figuring it out. I'm 28, I'm still figuring it out. My mom is 65, she's still figuring it out. So it's like an endless process. So I feel like there's a lot that we're constantly learning about ourselves and the world around us. And rather than focus on that, I'm focused on collecting as much experience, growing in the path that I want to be. So it's less of trying to figure out how to be really confident in being seen. It's okay to lack confidence sometimes. It's okay to not be ready. That's all right. Everybody shows up anyway. Where they meet themselves as they show up every time. So I'm more focused on just participating, right, and just collecting as many memories as I can. But like the idea of figuring it out, it's a myth. You're never gonna actually figure it out. You're just gonna converge towards something. You just want to make sure whatever you're converging to is what you actually choose and desire. So
Absolutely. Enjoying the experience of seeing yourself as you are at every point in time.
Growth is an endless process.
Absolutely.
That's my answer.
Thank you.
2 minutes.
Lovely.
I'm already ready. I'm like, time starts now. Personally, for me, something that I'm still figuring out, and I will feel like I will continue to be in a long-term relationship with figuring this out, is internal validation. How to validate myself without needing to hear from 5 of my closest friends that, no, babe, you're good. Right? Like how to validate myself without needing to be frustrated or pushed to the point of anger. Because I feel like growing up as a Nigerian woman, we always have to keep giving extra. We always have to keep extending the rope until it's very blatant that, we're being disrespected, or like it's very blatant that we're not being acknowledged. Or I want to be able to internally validate myself from jump. Or from earlier enough. And that's something that like is in my life, that pulling into my art, I want to be able to take the internal validation I have in my art and in my work, because I internally validate myself with my work. Nobody can tell me what I'm doing right. Nobody can tell me what I'm doing wrong. I'm doing it, right? And I want to be able to extend that into my everyday life practice. So that's something with perception I'm still really figuring out, how to weaken the importance of the voices around me and heighten the importance of the voices within me. I did really good for time.
During the shoot for the Brazilian shoot, my photo assistant Electra, she's a friend of mine. She also helped me out with the AI shoot that I did before that. And one of the things she told me that shoot was I need to start looking at myself the way that my friends see me and see how powerful I actually really am. Because during that shoot, I honestly didn't know if I'd be able to make it seem how I wanted to. And the thing is, I always do. But I keep psyching myself out before I even get the chance to like give myself the chance. So she kind of gave me doctor's orders for the month to not psych myself out for any opportunities for the month of June
and try and see myself, like really see how much I've come from the past 2 years in trying to be a better photographer, better creative director, and just like give my own self a chance. So that's what I'm trying to work on.
For myself, I'll say the biggest thing is I'm still trying to figure out if I'm an introvert or an extrovert. Because depending on the day, mood, weather, time, you'll get a different me. And then in that regard, kind of the impression, like there are people who would go to battle like, yo, Chyme is the friendliest person ever. And people are like, yo, that dude's an asshole, pardon my language. And then on the flip side, the other thing is balancing the mediums. So like I said, primary mediums are music and fashion. And depending on how life is going or how things are, you find yourself doing one more than the other. And I've experienced times where frankly, my fashion endeavors are paying me more, so I was focusing on those. And then you meet someone who's like, yo, bro, do you still do music? And I'm like, yeah, I just put out a song, but but stuff like that. Balancing the mediums, because at the end of the day, they are frankly both very important to me. And then lastly would be, remind me what the question was again? That was gonna.
Sorry. What's something about your relationship to being seen that you're still figuring out?
Yes, and the last one is realizing and accepting that what you portray today or what you express today might not whom you might be tomorrow. And you should still be comfortable expressing it today and coming back tomorrow and walking it back like, okay, yeah, I don't believe that as much anymore, or this is evolved in this way.
For me, it's giving up control, because as much work I put into how I'm being seen, how I'm being perceived, the truth is I cannot control how anybody see me. And especially because the type of themes I explore, like identity, rebirth, love, longing, childhood, trauma, all of those things require that I am exposed, no matter how much I try to conceal the fact that I'm exposing myself. So I'm still learning how to just give up control, just to show up and just be, and not think so much about the things that I cannot control, how other people are perceiving me. And I think that might be something I will keep on learning. Like you said, at every age, you're still figuring things out. I don't think it will stop, but I'm committed to being easier on myself every day. So, yeah.
Thank you all so much for sharing your art and your heart. This is lovely. I love being on this side of the conversation. So we are sort of pretty close to like the time for the tour. So I'm just going to allow like maybe 2 questions. If there's anyone in the audience that wants to ask a question to all of the artists or anyone particularly. Yes, please.
Well, it was really nice to like hear all your stories. I think sometimes like how you are mature in a like as a person and actually your age is different. And so like as a young artist, like I have struggles of like kind of learning that like how much I do is accounted for in terms of like commissions and like, you know, live paintings and all that stuff. Like I feel like people underestimate what I'm capable of at my age, but also at the same time they think I'm older than I am. Like I don't know, like if you could take a guess, like how old would you think I am? I'm 18. So like I'm still like 12th grade high school. Yeah, so like but like doing all these stuff, like I'm asking you guys just how to make sure I'm not doing too much for my age, because obviously doing live paintings and like commissions left and right, figuring out the pricing of my paintings, the value I should give them and all that stuff, like how do you guys like organize your schedules and everything?
Hi, there's no such thing as doing too much for your age. I think there's such a thing as putting too much pressure on yourself, but there's no such thing. You are allowed, the sky is your limit. If you're a prodigy, you're a prodigy. And that's a matter of fact. Like, I feel like what you need to do is be kind and be gentle and make sure you're enjoying yourself. Because that's what being an artist is. You should enjoy yourself. And doing commissions are, I'm so sorry, excuse my French, commissions are a bitch. And every artist knows, but at the same time, finding the joy in that, finding the skill in that, finding the pleasure in refining a technique. There's no such thing. Don't limit yourself. Don't. And if people think that you're much older for the things that you do, tell them thank you very much. I tried my best. That's good marketing, right? But at the same time, give yourself the kindness, give yourself the grace. You are allowed to do as much and as little as you want. If when you turn 20, you want to take a 5-year hiatus, you can do exactly that. It depends on what you want, what you see for yourself, but art is an outlet and it's an expression and it's a relationship you have with yourself, your body, and your mind. You make the rules. So prioritize gentility, prioritize confidence, prioritize care, and you're good.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I think I agree. There's no such thing as doing too much. If you can do it, you can do it. But what I would ask is, while there is no such thing as doing too much, there is such thing as working very hard, but not on the projects you actually want to work on. So I think a lot of artists can relate to working on a lot of commissions, but you have this project that's yours sitting in your notes. So I would say if you're working hard or if you're working too much on projects that are not yours, perhaps that's not good. It's better to, if there is such a thing as working too much, work on something too much on something you actually want to, right? If there's stuff you've been trying to explore, work on that. And I feel like you're 18, you're probably still at home, maybe.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
I'm actually moving to Toronto for uni.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I mean, you have the luxury of being selfish with your interests, right? A lot of people may take commissions because they have to pay the bills, but you have the freedom of saying no, right? So I would say if there is such a thing as working too much, work too much at whatever it is you actually genuinely want to work on, like on your own projects. You know?
Amazing. I have one more question. Okay. Oh, thank you so much.
Hi everyone, that was a great panel. Thank you for all the insight. My question is, what is your importance in regard to mentorship? Like, do you have mentors? And what actually your relationship to mentorship and the importance of it?
I'm trying to find one.
Both of them are actually my mentors. I can take the mic if that. Yes. So both of them are actually my mentors, and they've been my mentors for different points in time. Olivia has been my mentor since this year, I believe, and Yomi, how long? It's been in maybe 2 years, 3 years, and I will say I very much believe in mentorship. I believe in having someone that you can rely on and ask questions. I'm very, very blessed. How I actually discovered Yomi's work was in the OAG, in the annex. And I remember seeing this piece. I was like fresh off the boats from Nigeria. It was like, it wasn't really fresh off the boats, but it was COVID, so I was technically like fresh off the boats. And I remember seeing this bombastic piece and being like, I zoom into the name and I see it's a Yoruba Nigerian name, and I'm like, who is this person? And so I did what people do. I went on Instagram, get to work. I went on Instagram, I looked for him, I followed him, and I said, hey, I saw this piece. It was amazing. Started coming for his exhibitions. We had an amazing conversation and an amazing few conversations. And then at a point in time, I was like, hey, would you mind mentoring me? And I will say it's been such a blessed experience. It's been such a blessed experience. I 100% know that that piece that's currently in the atelier would not be there if not for the mentorship of Yomi and Olivia. That's a matter of fact. I think it's always important to rely on elders, even though you're not that much older than me. But elders in the sense of like elders in the craft, right? It's always important to rely on community. It's always important to ask questions, because that thing that you're turning your head over and over, the answer is not too far. And sometimes it's a matter of actually just being like, hey, can you help me? And so I very much believe in mentorship. I feel like, I'll text Yomi and I'll be like, hey, I have this application due at midnight. Can you look over it for me? And he'll grumble small, but he's always helpful. And I think it's like, it's beautiful to build a mentorship, but it's also beautiful to build a friendship with someone that you have such similar interests and you have such similar struggles. So I completely believe in mentorship, but I also recognize how I've also had mentorships that have not been great. I've also had mentorships that have been exploitative. I've also had mentorships in my life that have been derogatory and that have left me with a lot of pain. So I think it's very important to listen to your intuition. It's very important to get to know the person, get to listen to the person's energy, what the vibe is giving. Because I know the word vibe is very like lackadaisical, but like it really is the vibe. It really is the energy, It's very important to listen and be able to trust people. I'll be giving Olivia my 5009 questions, and I feel very, very blessed. And these are relationships that I feel like I can reach out even if it's not something related. So mentorships are not supposed to be your typical professor-student relationship, but they are supposed to they're supposed to have a level of closeness and trust. And that's so important to build and navigate and share and put back into society. Because I can't wait to be someone's mentor one day, because I'll be able to put forth the kindness that has been shown on to me.
Yeah. I'll just add a little bit again. I think mentorship is great. I think it's difficult to find. I don't think it's an easy thing, especially if you're working in a very specific, thing. You need someone who perhaps understands it properly or understands you well enough to know what you're trying to, where you're trying to go. And the lack of mentorship, community is great, whereas you have other artists or other people who are doing a similar thing, trying to achieve a similar thing. Really what a mentor is a knowledge pool, someone who has experience and is willing to share that experience. It's also a two-way street. You don't choose a mentor, you sort of choose each other. So you can't demand that someone or ask, really. It's a tricky thing. But in the lack of a mentor, there is community, whereas everybody is also trying to figure out the same things. And then, it's like Reddit or a group chat, where if your code isn't working, you go online and find someone who has gone through a similar issue. They're not your mentor, but it's a community of people who are pushing, who are doing the same things. So in the lack of a mentor, community is really strong and really beneficial, perhaps even more than a mentor sometimes, because you're with your contemporaries, you guys are doing the same things, you're bouncing off ideas of each other, you're collectively learning, trying to solve a problem. So, while a mentor is hard to find, community is very easy. That's what I'll just add to that.
Does anyone else want to add to this?
Yes, just to say one thing. I don't believe in mentors within an industry or within a career. Not because it's not a bad thing, but because sometimes it can be very hard to find somebody within. So what I usually recommend is just have life mentors. Like, you can identify people who are good people. You can identify people who have a vision, and if you strike that relationship, they may not even know. Like I have people I would say are my mentors that don't even know that I'm a musician. But we can talk about stuff, and then on your own part, it's also your duty or responsibility, or don't like that I'm a musician, but it's also your responsibility to listen to what they say in terms of their own experiences or in the fields that they play in, and take the relevant advice to yourself and apply it accordingly. Yeah.
Oh. Beautiful, beautiful. So we are going to take a tour of the atelier, and so feel free to, ask any questions directly to the artists. But before we go, I also just want to shameless, I don't know, it's not really my plug, but Arts Ottawa is an organization that has a mentorship program where they actually pair artists with other artists. And so that's definitely something, if there's anybody in here who's looking for specific mentorship opportunities, but certainly agree with what's been said here as well. Community is the way to go, and dare I say, probably where you will find someone who you may want to be your mentor. I'm not sure if Evelyn is in the room, so I'm just gonna have Evelyn, who is from OBAC, the Ottawa Black Arts Collective, please come and say a few words.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Evelyn Debut with the Ottawa Black Art Collective. And so first I wanted to say congratulations, Madame Curator, on your debut, and congratulations to the artists as well. I'm really excited to go upstairs and see all your beautiful works and hear all your beautiful works. So the Ottawa Black Art Collective, we're a volunteer collaborative artists, visual artists, and curators of African descent in Ottawa. And so we've been around probably for about 12 years. So when you all talked about networking and supporting, I was smiling because that's essentially what we're there for. In the last 5 years, we've started to work more closely with a lot of the arts organizations in the city, because our artists were coming to us and saying, we need more exhibition time. We need more collaboration with the galleries. We don't just want to be contacted during Black History Month. We don't want to be tokenized. We'd like to have more respectful relationships with the galleries. We started that conversation with the Ottawa Art Gallery in 2020. If you go on their YouTube channel, you can see the conversation that we started there, sort of taking them a bit to task in terms of their representation of artists of African descent in the National Capital Region. And since then, they've been an excellent partner with us. We're now in our 4th year of partnership with them. You'll see our artists are everywhere at the gallery. We've also started an emerging curator program, which is now in its 4th year and expanded to include the National Gallery as well. And as well, we work with many other smaller organizations around, smaller galleries around the city, including Debaser, providing opportunities not only for our artists to exhibit more, but also for curators who have the cultural context in order to be able to really help us exhibit our work in a respectful manner and an accurate manner without, and being in an authentic manner as well. So again, I wanted to say thank you again for your beautiful work and your collaboration. Thank you to Debaser. And thank you to the artists, and thank you to all of you. You can find us everywhere. We're the Ottawa Black Art Collective with a K for collective because C was taken. And you can find us on Instagram, on Facebook, and please reach out to Olivia, all of the artists, if you'd like to join our private Facebook group, and we'll make sure to get you connected as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. And once again, big thank you to Debaser and OBAC for this opportunity. Thank you all for your reflections and for your honesty and for your presence tonight. I really hope that this conversation, I have words because I don't like to go off script, but I really hope that this conversation affirmed just how much range and depth and courage exists within you all, but also within the works that you create. And I'm just really grateful for the trust in the works, in the vulnerability that you were willing to give, not just me, but us. It means so much. And with that, we're going to do a little walkie walk. We're going to walk over. We're going to take a tour. We're going to look at the pieces. We're going to talk to each other. Then we're going to all walk back and enjoy a gorgeous set by Dominique and Chyme. So